Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Krista and Ed Show. I'm Ed and
Krista.
And we are so excited today. We have a very special guest, Bill Crane. He's from
So busy.
He's so busy.
My phone
is off the hook.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Let me see if I can figure out how to turn this thing off.
We are blessed to even have a little bit of his time. He's selling things all over the place.
That's right. He just pressed sold. So just a background on Bill Crane. He hails from Chicago, Illinois. He was a real estate broker and still does have a brokerage for the better part of 20 years. He's a business development consultant and has been doing that for the last 30 years. And his focus is really on teaching and training and consulting. And I think because of your passion that related to real estate and helping people in the real estate market, it kind of spilled over to helping people in general around business development and growing their business. He is an author of Generating Clients for Life, which I'm really excited to hear about. Mm-hmm. Woo, there we go. Nice, nice, nice. And I think you said to me that, you could stay just in the real estate world, but you have this strange addiction to helping people in every niche because there's some basic principles. So thank you so much. We know you're super busy. So we appreciate you taking the time to let us interview today.
My pleasure. It's a real pleasure to be on the Ed and Krista show. I follow you guys not only on your show, but on Facebook and other social media. And you guys are so cool. And I had the pleasure of meeting you in Nashville a couple of months ago. And
yeah,
it's really kind of refreshing to see, man and wife, husband and wife, work together. It's so like something, it's like something I've been dreaming of for a long time. And maybe you guys can help me and my wife with that. Maybe that'll be another podcast. I'll have to see if I can get her on. But yeah, I've been in the business world pretty much forever. I actually started selling when I was 5 years old because like I grew up a poor kid, and my mom, right, she still wanted to give my brother and I a vacation, right? So, but she was broke, and we lived in an apartment. My dad left, and
jerk.
So yeah, exactly. So sperm donor, basically. So anyways, she's like, I want to take my boys on vacation to Florida, but she only had enough gas money to get there, right? So going down, she started panhandling, begging people for money, like at a truck stop or a gas station, wherever we happen to stop, McDonald's. And at this one rest area, she saw this pine tree. I think we were in like Georgia or something, and it had like these humongous pine cones, these big, beautiful pine cones under it. I mean, they were big to me. I was like a little 5-year-old kid. And she's like, okay, here's what we gotta do. We're gonna sell these pine cones. So she had me, as a little 5-year-old kid, going up to people and asking them if they want to buy a pine cone. And then that worked very well, and it felt better than just begging for money. Now, of course, I didn't realize any of that until later in life. I just thought it was normal because I was a kid and my mom told me to do it. But then the interesting thing was it didn't stop there, because that like set off some kind of light bulb over her head. She had an epiphany, right? So she had us selling everything. My brother and I, as we were kids, like we would sell candy bars door to door in the apartment complex. We even sold like newspapers. Like she would go to like the newsstand, buy all the newspapers for $0.25, and have us sell them door to door for $1. Wow. So like I've sold everything: newspapers, phone books, steak knives, cans of Coke, candy bars, pine cones. So for me, just that sales process, like I was never afraid to talk to strangers.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem that most people in business have, is because we raise our kids not to talk to strangers. Yeah. And all of a sudden they graduate high school and college. We say, okay, now go talk to strangers and ask them for money.
Yeah.
It's like really kind of tough.
Yeah, that's true. So really it's been ingrained in you since you were little, and your mom sounds like she was an entrepreneur herself. She's just really good at delegating.
She was really, really good at delegating. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. As you're talking about that, our daughter, Scarlett, she has that gene in her too. And it's something that I've realized, you know, since I started my entrepreneur journey, that it's like in your blood, right?
Yeah.
And she goes around, actually a few years ago, I'll just share this funny story since we're talking about it, is at the lake in Canada, like a couple years ago, they stopped taking pennies, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we have all these.
That's how bad our dollar is.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't have money anymore. No. So we had all these pennies, right? Because like
a big Ziploc bag of pennies and nickels.
Yeah.
That was what we had.
And when I had my boutique at the time, it was named after her. So she had her own business cards because she's always like schlocking stuff or whatever.
Selling clothes.
And she was going around the lake, and I didn't realize, because all these people are neighbors and friends, and people were coming up to me later. They're like, oh my God, your daughter's so cute. And I'm like, what did she do? Right. And she was 5 about the time. Well, went to all the lots with her bag of pennies and was telling people the candy store won't take the pennies anymore. So she was wondering if people wanted to buy them because they don't, like, you can't get them anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
So
created scarcity.
She made like $50 or $100.
No joke. It was $50. It was
like,
50. She was dollar trading. She's like, here's 5 of my brown ones. Give me one of those green paper ones. No joke.
Like, seriously.
And that's just one. Like, she's
anyways, it's adorable. But but at the same time, like, we try to encourage that in her, right?
Yeah.
So we have to tell her sometimes, like, okay, stop.
You've already sold something 3 weekends in a row. The signature kites are over, the lemonade stand. But for her mindset is kind of probably where you were. It's like, okay, I have no money to go to the store. I'm going to make some money.
Yeah.
Whereas kids don't necessarily think that way these days, right? They don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't talk to strangers, and then also be on your phone or your device, so you're even more introverted, really.
Yeah, absolutely. We're raising a whole world of introverts, and it's so weird that, you know, social media it really should be anti-social media, right? Because it's like, especially you go out to dinner and it's like everybody in the whole restaurant's on their phones, nobody's having a conversation. You're gonna hear a pin drop in the restaurant. It's just great.
Sorry, I took us off topic there, but as a mom, like, I could just see, like, I get that when you're a mom, like, you do everything you can to be resourceful, you know, and so and then I just thought of my daughter, and so continue. Bring it back, Ed.
It's funny, it's hard to find resourceful people these days. In fact, you know, most of the coaching that I see, and that I experienced myself, so like as soon as I got into the real estate business, because like I didn't go to college, like part of that whole sales and sort of marketing thing that I grew up with created this weird fascination in me with sales and marketing. So like in high school, we had a marketing class, but it was just one. But like I took it all 4 years, even though like I couldn't get more credit for it because like I didn't care about geography. And one of the things that my mom also pushed into me with her programming and also from her father was like, you're not going to college. Like there's no money for that. Yeah. It's not going to happen. You graduate high school, get a job, stay there your whole life, and hopefully you'll get a pension or something. But, you know, so it was pounded into me that like I was born from nothing, that I am nothing, and I'm never going to be anything. Yeah. And for some reason, like I was like, what are you talking about? Like I didn't connect the dots until later, but like she taught me to be able to do anything, you know, go knock on a stranger's door and ask them for money. But at the same time, she told me there was no money, I'm not going to college. So somehow I embraced that. But, you know, so I got into marketing. I knew that when I got out of high school that I was going to go into some kind of business. Like I somehow knew that I wasn't like employed, you know, I wasn't, you know, whatever you call it, you know, employable, right? I wasn't going to be desirable to the boss because I wanted to be the boss.
Yeah.
Right? So I took all those marketing classes, just like one of our mentors, Russell. I collected junk mail. I used to watch infomercials instead of cartoons, right? like most kids are watching. And in that, the first guy I remember that really had an impact on me was a guy named Dave Delgado. And back in like the 80s, he was teaching people how to buy real estate with, you know, no money down, no credit, no problem. And as a kid in high school, I was like, oh my God, I totally qualify for that, right? And then when I had to walk to school, there was all these homes that were beautiful, and I would always have him, how come we have to live in this crappy apartment? We have to bang on the ceiling with a broomstick to get the neighbors upstairs to stop breakdancing or whatever the heck it is they're doing. And she would always just say, well, we can't afford it. But then I'm like, well, this guy says like you don't need any money. So like, what do you mean we can't afford it? So like, then it like kind of married the two worlds of sales marketing into real estate. And somehow in high school, I knew I was going to go into real estate. So unfortunately for me, Illinois, like literally the year I graduated high school, passed the law, and they changed the law that you had to be 21 instead of 18 to get your real estate license. So I'm like, crap. But then I went to work for a home builder and got a lot of experience that way, building homes, because I was lucky in that the dude running the place, the superintendent, you know, he hired me on as a laborer, but he was like an alcoholic that loved golf, right? So like all summer long, like he'd come in, he'd get everything started, and by like 8 o'clock in the morning, he's gone. And then he'd come back at like 4 o'clock, and he left this 18-year-old kid to run this construction project that was supposed to be building 400 homes in a year. And we had like 43 trades and a couple hundred, you know, guys running all around. So like it was like being thrown to the wolves. So I just learned how to manage that way at a young age. So that was like, it was just another stroke of luck. So I had my mom who got me into sales and marketing. This guy who was really the manager who thrust me into management, like way before I should have been, was so helpful, you know, later on in life in how to build and run a business.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I love that. I love your attitude that's how you viewed it, right? And I think that's important. One thing that I've been realizing and learning too in marketing or sales and in business period is I like to say that, you know, it's really all about problem solving.
Yeah.
Right? And at the end of the day, it's just figuring out like what is the problem that your customers or clients or, you know, the students, whatever, have, and how can you solve it for them? Yep. So, you know, it sounds like you've been problem solving from a very young age. So, and
embracing, I'm relating it back to something that happened to me. But I mean, there's a bit of a skill set. It's like I had a traditional ad agency, and there's a really large auto dealer group in our area. And they messaged or emailed me and said, hey, we want the big, you know, the $30,000 balloons. Do you make them? And I was like, of course we do.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes.
Right? Well, hundreds of thousands of dollars later, we put dozens of these balloons up. I had to figure it out, but and really, you know, drop down and start running because I didn't say no. And you really, at that point, at your age especially, which is incredible, could have just said, listen, like, this isn't my job description. This isn't my, you know, and you're like, no, there's this opportunity to learn and embrace and grow.
You know what I love is that, like, most people that age can't wait to be of age so that they can, like, finally go to the bars. And go to Vegas, and you're like, oh, I can't become a realtor until I'm 21. So that's amazing. You're like years ahead of everybody.
But then to be able to say, okay, I have a passion for real estate, like I have that interest, and in going to the construction side, there's so much vast knowledge that you can apply. After the fact, it's like when you're showing a home, being able to really understand the construction and communicate some of that value to them so that it makes the product you're showing even more valuable, right? As opposed to, hey, it's 3 bedrooms, you know, or whatever.
That construction background definitely helped me a lot in real estate. Not only just for the knowledge, but the problem solving and there's the interacting with the different customers and clients at an early age, and to see like why people bought a a particular style of home over another one. You know, we had like half a dozen models or whatever, and of course all kinds of options, and just all the interaction that came with that people served me really well in the real estate later on. And then something you said, Ed, reminded me of something, because part of my story is like I built this direct response newspaper, and I'll show you, like the Real Estate Insider, right?
Yeah.
And this is how like I got my name as a Real Estate Insider over 20 years ago, because when I got into real estate, one of the first things I did is I studied, I was already a student of direct response marketing, but then I went and I coached with Jay Abraham and Dan Kennedy, and I just learned how to write these editorial direct response type ads, and I put them in the local newspapers, and they worked like ridiculous. Like they worked at a level that like they shouldn't have worked at, right? And it actually pissed off my competition.
Yeah.
So like my competition, like I was a RE/MAX agent because like, you know, I skipped like a few years of my life, but after working for the builder, I started doing side jobs and eventually started my own company and left the builder because I was making more money doing side jobs than I did. You know, I worked for the builder for about a year and a half. And then I started Crane Home Improvements, but I always knew I wanted to go to real estate. And so when I got into real estate, I started at RE/MAX because it was 100% company. So I got all of my commission, but you know, I had to pay a desk fee. And because I had already known what overhead in the business was all about, like I wasn't afraid, I just went to RE/MAX. But I did interview with the Coldwell Bankers and the Century 21s. And then, because I had no idea RE/MAX was 100%, right? So Coldwell Banker and Century 21 were a 50-50, and then you paid a 7% franchise fee on top of that, so you would get like 43%. And I thought, well, that kind of sucks. So then I went and interviewed with RE/MAX, but Coldwell Banker and Century 21 had amazing training programs because that's like where most people start.
Yeah.
And RE/MAX is mostly people have been in the business for a long time and have already done a bunch of deals. And so somehow in my mind, I just mushed it all together. And I thought that RE/MAX had this amazing training program. But all I heard was 100% commission. You know, so after like a couple weeks, I went to the broker. I said, Ed, when does the training start? And he just says, what training?
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean what training? You told me that you guys had all this amazing training. And he's like, well, no, I didn't. What did I tell you? And I start spouting off about the programs. He's like, oh, yeah, that one's Coldwell Banker. That one's Century 21. I'm like, well, what do you mean? What kind of training? You guys are the biggest real estate company in the world. You must have the best training. He says, no, you're supposed to already know what you're doing when you come here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, Ed, you knew I was 2 weeks out of real estate school. You know, why didn't you tell me? And he says, well, because you wouldn't have joined.
Yeah.
That's prevalent in that business too, right? A lot of that, right? The more numbers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
a numbers game.
So I love that you identified that, and you've spent a lot of time, you know, coaching and helping realtors, not just realtors, but other businesses, you know, build up their business so that they can be successful in whatever brokerage they're in, if that's the case. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is there's enough customers for everybody.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say everybody, because I have met a few people that are trying to sell a product or service that nobody wants.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, so it's like, I'll ask people, you know, like, I mean, I'm pretty good at this. I don't want to blow smoke up my own butt, but like, what is the result of what you're selling? And like, do you have any competition? And they usually can't articulate the result, and they don't have any competition. And I'm like, well, that's because nobody wants that. Like,
Yeah.
you're probably not the first person to try it,
Yeah.
but because like, if you were the first person to try it, you know, it would be really cool, and I'd be able to help you sell it, and then you become a gazillionaire like Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like the thing you're trying to do, like honestly, I don't think anyone wants it.
Yeah.
So there's definitely those people out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I come up with new ideas pretty much every 3 hours too, that I'm pretty sure is like the next
She's
step.
like, this is it.
Yeah.
I'll be like, honey, and then she'll do the, and I'll be like,
No.
I'll just sip my coffee. No.
No, it's true. And but you know what is awesome, and you know, with your experience and whatnot, is, you know, being able to guide people in that sense, that you've, you know, been in the industry, in business long enough to be able to honestly say, not just not a good idea because I think so. Like,
yeah,
you can actually back it up with the reasons why, you know?
So I was curious, like when you talk about your book, like generating clients, that's one thing. Like I've heard lots where it's like to sell them, to get them in. But when you talk about for life, was that originally where you were like, okay, you know, if you're buying real estate, you usually buy what, 2 or 3 homes through your cycles from a starter home to, or did that come after where it transcended and saying, listen, if you're going to, you know, generate a client, they should be for life. So
yeah, like what was the inspiration behind that?
I think that, you know, initially it was inspired by real estate, but then I've noticed that like really it applies to every business, because when we see, there's a difference between a customer and a client, really. A client you have a fiduciary relationship with.
Yeah.
Really you should put their interests ahead of yours, right? So whether or not I make any money is immaterial. I'm looking out for your best interest. So like that's the way the real estate industry is supposed to operate. I'm not going to pretend like the National Association of Realtors, who swears by their code of ethics, that's how it really works. The truth is there's a whole lot of unethical people that signed off on the code of ethics. I mean, that's just reality. Because there's human
names. No, I'm just kidding. We can make this juicy. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So to me, you know, someone should be your client for life. And if you're providing them that wow service, that service that they value so much that they know that they can't get it anywhere else. That, like, if they even think about hiring a different person, they literally feel sick to their stomach. They want to throw up, or even thinking of considering hiring someone else. That's the level of service that we should provide. So like for me, like even though I charge a premium for what I do, whether it's in real estate or coaching, I'm by no means not the least expensive, but at the same time, I am, because I'm not a cost, I'm an investment.
Yes. Right?
So when someone hires me, whether it's as a real estate agent or a business development coach and strategist, like by the time we're done, my deepest desire is for that person to absolutely feel like they ripped me off.
Yeah.
Like I want people to give me a tip, like as if I was a waitress, you know, but instead of giving me like $5, I want them to give me 5,000, or, you know, like people will send me a Stefano Ricci tie or a nice watch. Because that just shows that, you know, we really provided our value. One of the things that makes me sick in the real estate industry is that real estate agents give people closing gifts.
Yes.
And I always say, well, that probably means that you feel like you got overpaid, right? So you almost feel guilty. You didn't give them what they really wanted, so you're going to give them a gift so that they forget about the fact that you're a pain in the neck to work with. You didn't sell the house for the amount of money they wanted, or you didn't get them the deal they wanted on the house. But like when I work with people, the gift that I give them is selling their house above market value, or helping them steal the house if they're a buyer, right? And so that I want them to give me a tip like they would do, which is natural in any kind of service provider environment. Because when it's the other way around, to me at least, it means that, like, you know, you just didn't do the job that the people really paid you for. You got, you know, it doesn't matter what it is, you know, 5,000, 10,000. Some of my clients, like in places like LA or Manhattan, they sell a property and they get paid $300,000.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, are you really providing $300,000 worth of service?
Yes.
I want my clients to be able to say yes. The unfortunate reality for most in real estate is no. Like, they were ridiculously overpaid.
Yeah.
And so like that started my whole movement, which is the Real Estate Insider movement, because I wanted to change the way that people buy, sell, and leverage real estate. Because there's a few problems. Like, you know, most people can find a pathway to wealth through real estate, and they can make the kind of money that an investor would make without actually having to be an investor and flip 20 homes a year. So part of it is teaching people, you know, how to sell their homes every few years, you know, tax-free, and be able to do that and continue to leverage to shorten that cycle. Like, I don't know what the laws are in Canada, but, you know, in the States, we can sell every 2 to 3 years and not have to pay a capital gains tax. And then, you know, people keep trading up and trading up and trading up every couple of years instead of every 10 years. You could do 5 sales in that same amount of time, which is going to exponentially increase your wealth, because most people's wealth is tied up in their home.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the rules here are something around the same. Like it's either 18 months or something that you have to literally live there and prove that you're there to avoid the capital gains. And then I think there's a cap.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, but I feel like you probably answered this question. I was going to ask you, like, why do you think you're so successful, like in a niche or industry where other people aren't? And if you have more of an answer to that, great. But I liked what you said about, you know, it's all about providing that higher level of service, right? Yeah.
The perspective of cost. I'm a cost, or I'm an investment. Not a cost. I got to write that down.
Yeah, and I know the exact reason to that, because it ties into everything I do, and it's what I teach people in my high ticket coaching, in the 2 Coach arena. So one thing I never ever do is I don't sell people what I want them to buy, right? I sell them what they want. So it's like what you said earlier, you know, they have a problem. So like I identify their problem, and then if I can solve that problem, great. If I can't, then I'll let them know, hey, that's not a problem I can solve.
Yeah, you're not just taking their money and going, okay, let's.
Yeah, because I come from integrity, and you know, I've never had a failure yet, and I have no intentions of embracing one. So if somebody is going to fail, either because their product or service is no good or unwanted, or they just seem like the type of person who isn't going to put the work in, like I can't do it for them.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm going to grow a business, then I'm going to take ownership of it, you know. Like I'll work with them at a high level, and in that case, you know, we have a residual agreement on the back end. But truthfully, I'd rather have people be independent and have me help and mold them and what they need to create, and then they go off on their own, rather than me have to be, you know, involved continuously. I'd rather have people be independent instead of being codependent. But you know, the businesses, I do have a few of those where like they really wanted me to be involved, and we work out an agreement, and life is good. And it hasn't always worked out. You know, sometimes people just, you know, they wanted me involved because they didn't want to do the work, and maybe I misjudged them or something. And you know, it's like I'm going to stick with my mastery, what that is, and how I identify what my mastery is if I have to think about it, even for 1 second, it's not my mastery. You know, so it's like if I know that I'm residing in my mastery when you ask me a question and I just have the answer, and I don't have to think about it.
Love it.
Yeah. I like that.
All right, so
You've got a pause going there.
This is not
I left her speechless. That's awesome.
You've got me speechless. No, I was actually just wanting to touch on, because we talked about this right before we actually turned the recording on. And I feel like, well, I know the answer to this a little bit because we've talked about it, but I do want to bring it up and talk about it a little bit with our listeners. So you're married, you have a wife, obviously.
Yes.
And she is not an entrepreneur, right?
That's correct. Nope.
So what does your wife do?
Well, she is a teacher. For most of her life, she was just a mommy. And that didn't sound right, because, you know, just a mommy. But that's like,
I was going to correct you. Don't you worry.
That is the hardest job in the world. And, you know, I couldn't do it.
Yeah. I
do what I do, but like what she does is harder. And now, like just 5 months ago, we have our first grandkid. I don't even know how it was possible, because I'm only 29 years old, but.
Wow, you started young. Well, it sounds like you were very mature from a young age.
Yeah. I was. And we did start very young. That's actually what cured my going out to the bar problem. Because before I could legally drink, I managed to, you know, knock up my girlfriend.
Pregnant. That's awesome. How many kids do you have?
I have 5.
You have 5?
Yes.
Oh, we're close.
Finally, somebody more than us.
Yeah.
How many do you guys have?
4.
Awesome.
We ever heard.
So you have 5 kids. So I'm just always interested in the dynamic. Your kids must be very young, since you're only 29. Like, do you, one thing I've noticed and I'm always fascinated with is like kids are so different, you know, they grow up in the same environment, they have the same parents, you know, they eat the same food, they go to the same schools, whatever, but they're so different. Do any of your kids have that entrepreneurial bug from you, would you say, or have they followed your lead a little bit in that?
My oldest one is trying to follow my lead, but he's not putting as much effort into it as he should. So he has a job, and so he uses the job for the excuse as to like, I don't have enough time. Well, you know, but he does all kinds of other things, like have fun with his friends. And I mean, he goes to the gym like crazy, which is great because, you know, he looks fantastic. And what he's trying to build, or he's actually built it, but he's not actually launched it yet, is a health, you know, program, how to lose weight and build muscle. So I've helped him with all that, and he's got his funnel done. And what I can't seem to get him to do is he needs to be the attractive character. He needs to step up and be the dancing monkey. He needs to publish. Yeah. And I told him, like, if you don't want to, like, literally just do it anyway. Do it on your phone and, like, don't even post it. Like, because you need rehearsal time. Yeah. You know, turn your camera on your laptop, you know, at all times, even if you're not talking, just so that you can, because like I find it with training, when I'm training agents, one of their biggest fears is the camera. So if I can get them comfortable on camera, they'll never have any problem presenting to a person.
Absolutely.
It's actually way easier to present to a person than it is to a camera. So I'm working with him on that to try to get him to overcome that. And then, you know, my second oldest, he wants to be an auto mechanic, and so he's doing that. And the funny thing is, I told him he needs to look for a job taking things apart. Like he loves to take stuff apart, but like then he's always complaining when he has to put it back together, right? But he's good with it. He's like Mr. Fix It. Yeah. And then my daughter thought she wanted to be a hairstylist, so she went into that. And now has decided that she doesn't like it because she can't make enough money. So she's telling me she wants to work with me on some stuff. So we'll literally see, like, in the coming weeks if that works out. And then the other two are in high school. My son wants to be in like either a nurse or a physical therapist or something. But we'll see, that may change too. And then my youngest one, and this is hilarious because like, he's like the most finicky eater. Like he won't eat like what I call normal people food, right? He eats cookies and ice cream and just like everything you're not supposed to. Yeah. But he's like really skinny. So I'm like thinking to myself, maybe these doctors don't know what they're talking about. Maybe you're just supposed to eat junk food because like
high glycemic index diet.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but the funny thing is he loves to cook. Like, nice. He wants to be a chef. Yeah. Like, he won't eat the stuff he cooks, though.
So he's a creator. He likes the art of it, right?
I think that's what it is. So, so we'll see where it all goes. And then my daughter, or my granddaughter, Skyla. So I've got two older boys, two younger boys, and my daughter's right in the middle. So my daughter, she just had her baby, you know, 5 months ago, and I don't know what the baby wants to be yet, but I'm definitely going to have some influence.
You're going to try and sway that one.
Yeah. See if I can make that one just perfect.
So I know we touched on it a little bit, but like, so there's that struggle. Like I know when I, you know, had started my entrepreneurial journey, Krista was at home. In fact, she had a corporate job. So it goes back to what she mentioned earlier. It's like, I'm leaving, networking, this and that. And that creates a dynamic from a family perspective. But in real estate, like a lot of those deals take place. The relationship building is on evenings. It's on weekends. It's when they have the ability to go look at property, whether it's a commercial real estate or residential, you know. So how did you juggle that from a time? Because you had 5 kids and your lovely wife. And
early in my career, it was tough because it's almost like the tail is wagging the dog, right? Like, so like most business people are no different than a realtor. Like, you know, realtors are kind of like an entrepreneur. but they're supposed to have some leadership from the broker. Unfortunately, the joke in the industry is, you know, what do you do with someone who can't sell? You make them a broker, right? So,
Oh, really? Okay.
I didn't know that.
so you've got the blind leading the blind, essentially, which is one of the reasons the industry's a little bit messed up. But so at the beginning, I just did everything that my broker said, and it was crazy, and I worked nights and weekends and all of that. But as slow as I am, eventually I started to notice that, like, almost never does anyone buy a house at an open house, right? And, like, it could be a good lead generator, but it doesn't lead to selling that house like 99.99% of the time.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing open houses. Because for me, at the beginning, I was showing people all kinds of houses, and I'd show someone 100 houses, and then when I'd call them up at some point, after showing them a house like 3 days ago, hey, you know, this new one popped up on the market, let's go take a look at it. They'd be like, oh, well, I just bought it for sale by owner over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So there's no loyalty in the industry.
Yeah.
So then I started using buyer's agency agreements, which like virtually no agents do. So that if it's just like a listing agreement. So if I'm going to work with you as a buyer, you know, then, you know, I'm guaranteeing that I'm going to be loyal to you. So you need to be loyal to me.
Yeah.
And we just set out all the boundaries and how it works. And I never lock anyone in. I mean, like, if you want to fire me, then fire me.
Yeah.
But you don't get to abandon me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's not fair. Like, I can't call you up on Monday and find out you bought it for sale by owner on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because first of all, it's dumb. Like, if you buy it for sale by owner and you're not savvy, right, chances are that you're going to overpay for that house.
Yeah.
And then even on the flip side, if you are a for sale by owner, like, who wants to buy a by owner? Is someone who wants to save the commission, right?
Yeah.
So now you're saving the commission and you're giving them a discount. That's why most, on average, according to USA Today, the average realtor assisted sale sells for 19.1% more than the average for sale by owner. Now, you'll never see that on the buyowner.com, you know, TV commercial.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But so all that led into everything that made me want to do the things that I do. So, well, if we back it up to the point where when I first got into the business, nobody told me what to do, so I had to figure it out on my own. It was really, really difficult. So, like, I got rejected a lot. So even though I wasn't afraid to talk to strangers, the industry trains you. And now later in life, I realized that it's not just the real estate industry, it's every single industry has horrible training. So they tell you things like every no leads to a yes. Like, people don't want you to call you. People don't want to be sold. So when you call them up, they're going to be mad. They're going to lie to you. They're not going to tell you what they want. You're going to have to pull it out of them. You're going to have to be like an oral surgeon and extract their teeth. You know, so that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So then they give you these scripts and dialogues that are horrible, which actually makes people think that they're dealing with an amateur. Nobody wants to work with an amateur, especially in an industry like real estate, where they're probably getting a call from multiple people and every single one of them says the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what that led me to do, because I had a growing family, is all of a sudden I was afraid to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like I was called every name in the book and a bunch of names I couldn't understand because they were like in Polish or something.
They were probably really bad.
You know, all these other languages.
Exactly. So what I did to save myself, like, I knew I had to make money. You know, I've got 5 kids, and it's like, this has to work because there is no job that's going to support my family. I mean, I don't think I could go, because I didn't graduate from Harvard or anything, I can't go apply for the CEO of some corporation and make $500,000 a year.
Even though you'd probably be really good at it, but it doesn't say so on paper.
I think I'd be really good at it, but who knows? So I bought something called a Predictive Dialer. So I don't know if you guys know what that is, but for your audience, a Predictive Dialer is a computer system that connects to a phone line. So I had a 15-line predictive dialer.
Okay.
So, so if you've ever had like a phone call and like no one's on the other end,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, who's calling me? You can tell like it's not like a hang up, right?
Yeah.
It's because there's a salesman, a telemarketer on the other side who's actually having a good conversation with whoever the predictive dialer just connected him with. So in other words, he didn't get hung up on in a normal amount of time. So the predictive dialer's job is to learn the average amount of time it takes for the salesperson to get hung up on, and then have a new fish, a new prospect on the line. So the second you get hung up on, you go right into your pitch.
Wow.
You know, so because of that, over a period of a few years, I made over 1 million cold calls.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I would make about 400 pitches on an average day. I think my record is like 460 or something. Because it's just like every time you get hung up on, you just start over. Just do it. Mm-hmm. So then, you know, the better I got, the less calls I had to make. So I started out when I first got the thing doing it 6 days a week. And then I would do listing appointments on Sunday. And then eventually, you know, I did it 5 days a week, 4 days a week, and then eventually got all the way down to 1 day a week. I could make enough appointments to last the whole week, and even beyond. And then eventually, because I learned everything that people either resonated with, so in other words, they liked hearing it, and the things that shut them off, it all came back full circle into marketing, right? And then that's when I started, you know, this newspaper I showed you guys earlier, because I was making all these calls, going all these appointments, but I was burned out. You know, so I had to build a system, and that how that system was born was I was doing all those direct response ads I told you guys about, and because it pissed off the competition, and they told the newspaper, the Colo Bankers and the Century 21s, we're going to pull our big four-page spread if you don't put an end to this guy.
You don't put Bill in his place.
So what happened was, and of course they didn't tell me that, but like they would give me a proof. It would be right where it's supposed to be, exactly what it's supposed to look like. And when the paper would come out, it would end up buried underneath some electronics ad and with paid advertisements stamped on it, and then like a huge border. And it kept getting worse and worse. So I finally talked to the ad rep and I said, look, like, what's the problem? Why does this keep happening? This is ridiculous. And you guys give me a credit, and then I don't even pay for the thing, but I don't even care because like it didn't work anyways. I went from generating a ton of business to generating none. And so like, what's the problem? I don't understand how you could be giving me a proof every week, then when it hits the paper, it's totally different. And she says, well, it's against our policy. You can't do ads like that. So just being the problem solver that I am, I said, okay, I understand and appreciate that. Can you please send me a copy of your policy? So that I can read through it and understand it. And I want to create an ad that will be okay for your policy. And then she says, well, I'm not allowed to send it out to anyone. You'll have to come in and meet with the editor. Okay. When can we do that? She's like, okay, you can come up tomorrow at 9 a.m. So I get there right at 9 a.m. And basically about every 30 minutes, like all day long, she would come in and say, oh, he's busy, he's gonna come, just wait a few more minutes. So eventually we get to like, it's 5 o'clock, right? And I see people are starting to leave and everything. And I go to get her, I'm like, where's the editor? This has been all day. Like, this is only gonna take a few minutes. Let's just figure out a way that it works for me and it works for the paper. And she goes, you know, like we thought you would just go away at a certain point. But here's the deal. All the other real estate companies are buying, you know, 4 to 6 page full color ad spreads in the paper. They spend a lot of money. You guys, you're spending a little bit of money on this little tiny thing. They don't like it. And they said they're going to pull this ad if we don't suppress your ad. And I said, well, wait, that's restriction of trade. That's illegal. And she said, well, then go hire an attorney. Because that's the way it is. And I'm like, no, that's bullshit. Like, you can't tell me that. And she looked me straight in the eye and she said, if you don't like it, go build your own goddamn newspaper.
And then it was born.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, wait, how come I didn't think of that?
You know what? I mean, okay, and this answers again probably why you've been so successful in your niche where other people aren't, because that just goes to show, you know, this kind of stuff happens all the time, right?
Yep.
And if, you know, the other realtors or brokerages or businesses, period, let's take out, you know, that industry, were really focused on serving the client, it would be a non-issue.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, you know, like whether you're serving them or somebody else is, it shouldn't really matter. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. But good for you for sitting there all day. And
you know what, I can't even imagine, like Krista and I sat down, this is, I don't know, a little while ago, and thinking, like, you know, I did a lot of cold calling, B2B sales, belly to belly, knocking on doors, right? And generating, I don't know, $30+ million in sales. And then she's like, how many no's did you have? Well, I could only physically go to a door. There's only so much physical time to, like, you know, I forget the formula I had. I think it was like 25 places that I would visit.
Yeah.
And really, I looked at it as like getting information, you know? And then there were lots of people that ended up buying or doing business right there. It's funny enough, a lot of people are scared to cold call per se.
Well, it's definitely a skill, and you have to be able to build those relationships. Like,
but to get a no and then hang up and, you know, like.
But you know what? This goes back to what we talked about earlier too. It might have been before we were recording again, and I was saying how there was a time where I was on the other side of the fence, where I wasn't an entrepreneur yet. I mean, it's always been in my blood, and I've always done all these ventures, but you know, he was, you know, the entrepreneur, and he was busting his butt and time, and, you know, it doesn't just shut off at 5 o'clock. And I would be pissed off thinking, like, you don't care about our family. You're not home for dinner. You know, why are you not sleeping at night? Like, what's your problem? You care about all. Okay, now I eat all my words, okay? Because I understand it's different. Like when you are actually your own business, there's way more weight on your shoulders, number one, because we truly believe that we're like responsible for changing the world every day. Like every day, right? And our most of the time our motivation comes from the reason we're doing it is for our family, one. And what happens is sometimes our families are the ones who suffer a little bit from our time or attention, right? But you obviously, you know, like have come up with as well, and we're aware of that. And I'm sure, you know, us wives we can be hard on you guys sometimes, right? So
bruises.
But I'm just saying, like, yeah, I mean, it's cool that, you know, you also tried to be more efficient as well, knowing, right? Like, okay, like my family as well, my time is important with them. And you've come up with all those kinds of solutions. And now I totally get it. Like, I'm the same way. Like, when he's sleeping, I'm annoyed because I'm thinking, are we supposed to be saving the world? What's happening here? You know?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, there's the juggle. Like I'm a fourth, like I woke up at 4:49 this morning, and I'm like, couldn't find my phone. So I couldn't even get that extra 15 minutes of snooze time in. I'm like, my phone, I dropped it. I don't know where it is.
I think it should be illegal to even be up that early unless you're catching a flight.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Like, I'm a night person. He's a morning person. So there's all those dynamics. And either way, I think it's interesting. And I'm a true believer because I also, you know, stayed at home for a few years with the kids after I left my corporate job. You know, you said it earlier, like being a stay-at-home mom is no joke either, right? Like nannies get paid for that, right? Us stay-at-home moms don't necessarily see the cash, but even though I asked for it sometimes.
Yes.
But you know what? Like anybody who has a business, it really is a family business. Whether your wife is working physically, you know, on paperwork, checking emails, or managing the house and the kids and all of that. I really believe that it is a full, you know, it's a family business, and it takes everybody for it to actually work and be successful as a team. So, yeah.
Yep.
So question for you.
Okay.
What is your superpower?
My superpower is really creating hooks. Some people might think of it as a headline because of that newspaper that I had, and that we published it all over the United States and Canada. And at one point, my circulation was about 5 million. And so I served so many people in so many different markets. I had to get really good at coming up with hooks. And also from all my time on the phone, I got really good at like telling people what they wanted to hear. That almost sounds bad, but it's not, as long as your purpose has integrity, in other words, to help them achieve their goal or their dream, then, the hook that can pull them in, especially in today's world where it's like instant gratification. Everyone just wants it. Like nobody wants to read the long form sales copy. I still see it out there every day. Facebook will tell you that it works better, that there's more engagement, but I figured out why. Like the reason why there's more engagement on Facebook is there's a little blue button that says see more, right? So it creates just enough FOMO for someone to click that button, and then they just scroll all the way to the bottom. Now, there probably are some people who love to read, but even though I'm a copywriter,
I've been reading all my messages.
Oh my God, I'm a copywriter, and I hate reading.
Yeah.
Like how I judge copy is like, if I can read it, then it's good.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm like, no, that's horrible. I'm not going to read that anymore. Then it's, usually average or no good copy. I actually believe there's either amazing copy or it sucks.
Yeah.
There's no like gray area. And most of it is horrible. But my superpower, if I understand someone's result, in other words, what they deliver to their ideal client, and if I understand who their ideal client is, I can usually just like pull their pitch out of thin air. And I can create their hook, I can do their pitch right on the spot. The danger for me is like if I can do something in 5 minutes, like people don't want to pay for it. So sometimes I have to slow down the process. But I'll have that conversation with people. Well, do you want this to take a year or do you want it to take a day? Because no matter what it costs, right? If it costs the same, if it takes a year or a day, which one has more value?
Absolutely.
The one that only takes a day. Okay, fantastic. Because like there was a story someone posted, I think it was in our group, about the ship, right? And it was like, the cruise ship broke down and like they couldn't fix it. So they're losing millions of dollars a week. And then they found some old dude from like Sweden. They called him in. And he's like, oh yeah, I know right exactly what the problem is. He takes a ball peen hammer, taps it in this place. To try now, the ship starts up, and he gives him an invoice for like, $1 million or something. Yeah. I'm like, what are you talking about? It took 3 minutes. You're going to have to itemize that for us. And he was like, okay, $999,000 for knowing where to tap, and $1,000 for tapping it in the right place.
Yeah.
But so like what we're selling to people is not our time, but our result, and it's our life's experience. Because me being able to deliver that result to someone extraordinarily quickly is because my mom started to have me sell pine cones at 5 years old.
Exactly.
But I've been doing it for 44 years, and I've been immersed in sales and marketing, and even like, I'm so weird. It's a hobby. I like watch TV commercials and redo them, because like I see TV commercials from major companies, and one of the things I want to do is become, like a TV commercial like writer or director or something, because I know that there's gazillions of dollars in that.
You guys are kindred spirits. She wants to cyber hug you.
I
awesome.
have always thought that. Even when I was young, I'm like, how do you get the job to do that? Like, there's 30 seconds and they wasted it. They could have done this. Like, I've always thought that. I've even tried to learn how to go to school to do that.
I would come home from work and be thinking about some client and talking to her, and she'd be like, boom.
That's awesome.
Sorry to cut you off. I've never ever heard anybody say that about commercials before, but I'm like, what?
Yeah, me neither. That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
So
that's a great superpower, by the way.
It really is. We always like to challenge our guests as well to ask us a question if you want to try to stump us. Or
I'm not going to try to stump you. I'm going to be extraordinarily selfish.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
That's okay. What I want to know is how Krista went from that place of resentment as a wife and mother, because I don't know about Ed, but like it leaves me feeling like right now today, it leaves me feel unloved, unappreciative, unrespected, because it's like we're coming from these two different places. We're both trying to do what's best for our family, but we have a different point of view. And so because she's got this resentment, I feel unappreciated. How did you guys fix that? Because like that is something that like the entrepreneurial world is just really needs, because like the divorce rate in our world is like extraordinarily high. And I think the reason why some people don't get divorced is because they're just so busy, don't have time to.
Yeah. So you know what, I'm going to get real here and say our dynamic is there's more to it, right? Like Ed was married before me as well. So I'm, the second wife. We also have 2 stepdaughters. So, you add a whole other layer of dynamic and what that takes as well to, share your time and family and all of that. And then the business and, all those kind of things. And I have to tell you, it's still a work in progress. I'm not going to lie. And we're at a place now where I feel like I'm starting to heal in a way because he's actually starting to now understand where I've been coming from too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think from working on ourselves, or for me and him, going down almost that personal development path and, starting to really think about life, a lot of things have carried into our marriage and relationship before we even knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where my dad was a, truck driver, he worked away all the time. And I think some of that programming in me of feeling like, well, he's not here, I need to be upset with him, came long before he was even a part of my life. So I know that's going a little bit deep, but yeah, I would say that we also, we have the little ones. The girls are getting older now, like 16, 18. Jax is 5 and 7. And I think that, what it comes down to, we're loyal to each other. We got married, right? Yeah. I'm never going to cheat on him. He's never going to cheat on me. We're stuck together. That's what breaks the marriage, right? So we might as well figure out how to make this work and be happy together. And what happened was when I started down my entrepreneur journey, I have to be honest, I think that's when for me, my eyes opened up of realizing how much he really put into our family. And you know what, because he was burnt out a lot of times, we got his B game. Mm-hmm. He got my B game too, because like we talked about, being a stay-at-home mom isn't necessarily, the most rewarding either sometimes, mm-hmm. You lose your, I'm very independent, right? So I started being resented because I'm like, why am I the one at home? And why can't I be, even though that's what I wanted to do. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. So when I started my own business, I did it from home. And we actually last year is when we decided, hey, like we're both have 2 businesses. I'm running this way. You're running that way. We have little guys and we're doing this for our family. Why aren't we doing this together? Like we need to figure out a way that we can do this together. And I have to tell you, Bill, we haven't really put this out there, and maybe you're the one who can help us with our messaging, but like one of the passions that we have and the reason we want to, start helping other businesses grow, we want to also be leading with that dynamic. So that, because I think, sorry, my son's there. We can relate. Literally juggling. We can relate, and I feel like I would be able to also, if we were coaching businesses or whatever, like I'd be able to relate to the wife, and mm-hmm. Because I have been on all sides of that, right? And to create an environment of even just to, if you want to be a part of it or just to understand some of this other stuff and what you just asked, right? And we have so many people who ask us that, like, how are you getting there now? And they're looking to us, and that's where we're realizing like there is a need for it. Do we have all the answers? No, absolutely not. Like, trust me, we're still, you know, like
I have bruises.
no, but you know what happens is, you know, any relationship, it's work, and the longer you're with somebody, the more life happens, the more kids and people and things that come in. A lot of times this is what gets disconnected, and but this is the foundation that needs to be nurtured and all those kinds of things. So I don't know, honestly, it just comes down to both of us finally, I think it's like letting our guard down a little bit and saying, you know what, like I'm okay, like, and understanding that we're just wired differently, we're different people. Yeah. I tried to change him a lot too, right? And he would try to change me. And I'm like, it's not going to happen. Like, we have to just figure this out, you know? Yeah. I also started understanding more about myself. I don't know if you've read like Alex Sharfin's entrepreneurial type, whatever. And I have to say, when I read that, I started going, whoa, okay. I understand now why I'm this way. And it's okay that this person isn't, that person isn't. I don't understand why, but it's okay, you know? I think, you know what, the big thing to overcome is, and Krista and I have talked about it a little bit, but it's like your relationship with people is almost like a highway, right? So, you know, it's like it can be a rut or a groove, right? And so immediately communicate with somebody. If you're in that groove, like their perception of what you're doing immediately is in whatever that pathway has been in the past. Yeah. So it's very, you have to almost be cognizant of that, right? Like I'll do something, she'll be like, oh, really? Really? And I'm like, what? Like what? Seriously, what? Like, that happened today. I can't even remember what it was, right? But she'll be like, really? And then it's because of that neural pathway of communication is there. So you have to come up with a way to get out of the groove. We've struggled too, like we're trying to spend time together, like the date night a week kind of a thing, where you communicate more. And I think that helps. It can help. Well, but you know what's happened, and I don't know what it's like for you, but for me, I would take those opportunities because I felt like there was no time for us ever to connect. And when we had time, I would just be telling him all the things he's doing wrong. So then I think he stopped wanting to hang out with me because it's not weird anymore. And then I'd get madder. And it's just this cycle, right? Yes. Yeah. Which actually is normal. But like I said, I think we're still working on it. And it's just at the forefront now where we're realizing, okay, like we're stuck with each other. Yeah. Yeah. Clearly. Yeah. So, no, I'm just kidding. That's awesome. I feel the same way. I'm stuck with her. That's really it. Oh my God. But I think it's like anything when you're doing a business. It's like you gotta, maybe you approach it from that point of view and go, okay, I need to do the building blocks. So if it's date night once a week so that we can have time with, I don't know about you, but I'm like attention deficit, scattered, like, oh my God. Yeah. Right? So she'll be talking to me, did you hear what I said? And I'll be like, no. Yeah. But then I get mad because he's lying. Yeah, exactly. So it's a double whammy. Now I'm in real trouble. Anyways. So taking time with intent, right? Yeah. Where you're having that date night. I think that's something to start on because then you're communicating. Sorry, we're getting bombed here by a little one. You know what? He's being good. He turned 5 yesterday and he's been relative. Oh, awesome. Happy birthday. Anyways, I hope that answers a little bit. And honestly, yeah, I know that it's a real thing, and I do find passion behind that when we're building out, you know, our new business model and stuff. It's something that, you know, they say like anybody can start a business, right? But long term, that you have to have something that you're passionate about to get you out of bed, and that is the one piece that I am passionate about, because I can see how marriages do break up or relationships because of this type of dynamic. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. And you know, you see some of the highlight reels here, but this isn't easy either. We've had probably some of our best fights since we started working together. I'm not gonna lie. It's usually just before the camera goes on and be like, okay, not fix the lighting. It's not 50, it's 150 first dates. The lighting is terrible. Oh, wow.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, you guys can definitely help people. I remember from the first time I saw your Facebook post, I was like, okay, yeah, that's what I want. You guys just, and I know not everything's not always roses like it looks on Facebook, but it still looks pretty darn good.
Thank you. Well, we do, like I said, even though, we're doing like marketing and consulting and business stuff, I think we've started to kind of decide that we're going to niche down and work with, couple dynamics in business or family businesses is the direction we want to go, because we understand there's the business part, but all of that, I've realized that people have been looking up to us in that sense. And I wish, I think if I had some of that and I didn't have to be like searching, feeling desperate sometimes, on the internet, like just let me read something that's going to save this, it's a real thing. But
and not necessarily just like a power couple, like a husband and wife or whatever relationship where they own a business together. Again, it goes back to a business owner that has a spouse or a significant other that's not even involved remotely.
Well, to me, that's
like, even harder.
No, but what I'm saying is like that's a family business, regardless if the person is physically working in or not. So I want to, figure out how to bring more attention to that and really involve, the family where they can be. I have a lot of fun involving our kids. Like when I had the boutique, my daughter, she had her own desk. Like she was like 3, but she's like, like she
like
started making me approve decisions through her, like where to put the sticker on the package. I'm like, okay.
I always think of the BBC little excerpt where the guy is being interviewed on BBC. There's millions of people watching, and his little one jumps in and kind of photobombs. Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
And then
I think I've seen it.
So the little guy comes wandering in, and he's being interviewed, and you could see him withering, like his face. He's like, "Oh, I'm on BBC." Yeah.
He's like trying to.
He's like this, and then the mom came in, and then the nanny came in and was trying to grab and then like fell, and anyways, it went kind of viral, right?
Yeah.
But that's life, right?
I've seen it. Yeah. And I think you guys turned me on to some Netflix show. Can't even remember what it's called. Fire, yeah. I watched that and I was like, oh my. At first I was like, wait a minute, is this an insult?
Why?
Because like at first the guy seemed like, weird or something, right?
Oh.
And by the end of the movie, I got it. It was a cool movie.
Yes. Totally.
It was very interesting.
Yeah, what a ride, hey? What a wild ride. Anyways.
So Bill, thank you so much. If our viewers or listeners want to get in touch with you, how can they find you? Where should we direct them?
Well, there's a few different ways. First of all, they could just Google me, Bill Crane, and it's spelled CRANE, just like it says on my mic flag there. They can go to proventoprofit.com. That's proven the number 2 profit.com. That's a free, absolutely free membership site where I give all kinds of free gifts and downloads, including they can get a free copy of my book, and they don't even have to pay shipping. And that's really cool. Most people who go there will be absolutely shocked because that's actually my 2 Comma Club funnel. Really? And they will not feel like they're being funneled into anything. In matter of fact, there's not even an autoresponder on it. So it's like I went totally against everything that's being taught out there in the world because I just used my own mastery of how I position and sell things. And we could go into that on another podcast or something. Otherwise, we'll go for another 2 hours or something.
Yeah.
Trilogy.
Nice.
So that's a really cool site. I love it, what it does. And then my newest thing is 2 Comma Coach. So I'm helping people in the business world outside of real estate to be able to build that 7-figure business. So some people that are struggling to hit 6 figures, first thing I do is help them with that. Because the only real difference between 6 figures and 7 is usually just a refinement of your message and then systems. If you get systems in place. And for some people, it means increasing your price. Like what I have on my email tagline is a high-ticket coach. I help people who are struggling to sell their thing for $297, sell it for $25,000 without any effort. And so that's so rewarding to me is to take someone that's having trouble selling their thing for cheap and show them how to position and amplify their value to such a point where people like actually just beg you to take their money.
Yeah.
And raise it up to 25,000 and beyond. And I learned all that like from the real estate business, because there really is no higher ticket thing than real estate.
Yep.
You're selling multi-million-dollar properties or tens of millions of dollar buildings. And people in this whole digital marketing world and the business world in general are usually trying to sell relatively cheap things.
Yeah. And it's one piece of the machine that needs to be working together, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
That's awesome. So is there anywhere else?
BillCrane.com if they don't feel like Googling it. Facebook, you know, Instagram, all of that stuff. I'm branded at Bill Crane Now. So whatever it is, Bill Crane Now. Plus all those links are on my site as well.
Awesome. We'll share the links as well in the podcast, and you'll, depending where you see this, you might be listening on iTunes, you might be watching on Facebook or our YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
So you'll get a little bit of Bill and Krista and Ed later.
There you go.
Yeah. And if you're not registered to Ed and Kristen Show already, subscribe. If you're not subscribed yet on YouTube, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe now, because otherwise you're going to suffer from FOMO.
Exactly.
That's right.
You're going to have huge fear because you will be missing out on the next podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye.